Considering how many amazing songs the Doors have in their six-album run with Jim Morrison, from the very first album all the way to L.A. Woman, which only encompasses a couple of years, we often talk about a lot of those kind of short little psychedelic pop ditties that they have, and there's so many great ones. But what has always intrigued me the most are those epic tracks, those songs that are over 7 minutes long, because there are a handful of them, there's six of them, that just kind of allow the band, and specifically Jim Morrison, to weave these kind of haunting, oftentimes shocking and maybe terrifying or atmospheric lyrical imagery, of which the band then applies the little pixie dust around it. I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching and joining here today as we take a look at the six epic tracks from the Doors. And again, epic could mean anything to anybody, right? Sometimes, especially when we talk about progressive rock here on the channel, epic 10 minutes plus. A few of these are in excess of 10 minutes. But, back in 1967, 68, 69, most bands weren't doing 5-minute long songs, 4-minute long songs, right? In most of the 60s, it's like if you were going to release a song or songs on an album, minute and a half, 2-3 minutes tops, that's it. All of a sudden, bands like Iron Butterfly and the Doors come along, and they're trying to say, you know what? We're going to throw those rules out the window, Jack. We're going to do songs as long as we want to, as long as they need to be. So there are six songs in total we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about each one of them, but more importantly, I'm going to rank them in the order of my preference, because I think these songs contain all sorts of really cool things, both from a musical and a lyrical perspective. And again, you know me, I'm not big on lyrics generally, but there's something about the songs, these poems that Jim Morrison wrote that are just really, really wild stuff. And then add in Ray Manzarek enchanting organ work, Robbie Krieger's spiraling guitar work, and John Densmore's light and majestic and sometimes very powerful drumming. Pretty cool stuff here with the Doors. I always like the Doors. I know for some people, they're a love them or hate them band. They were wildly successful when they were here with us. And then once Jim passed away, obviously they found out that without that one magic guy, that same success didn't really happen. Right? Couldn't be replicated. And ironically enough, these six epics, when I first started thinking about doing this, I was like, oh, each album has one. No, there are two albums that don't have any, that have all short songs, but the other four contain these long songs. So basically what we're looking at here, from the debut album, we're going to look at Light My Fire and The End. All right. From the second album, Strange Days, we're going to look at When the Music's Over. We got nothing from Waiting for the Sun. We got the title track to the Soft Parade on the Soft Parade. We have nothing from the Morrison Hotel. But then we have both L.A. Woman and Riders on the Storm from their final album with Jim, L.A. Woman. So let's talk about each one of these. So first, for my number 6, I'm going to go with the Soft Parade, which again is the final song, 8 minutes, 30 seconds. The CD says 8:30. If you go online, it says CD says 8:40. If you go online, it says like 8:30. So whatever it is, it's just about 8.5 minutes long. And here, I think this song is very different from the others that we're going to talk about today. It starts off, you can petition the Lord with prayer. Petition the Lord with prayer, like Jim the Preacher, right? This one, you listen to this, and I was like, I went and re-listened to all these again. I've heard all these songs tons of times over my course of my life, but I went in and listened and watched read the lyrics while I was listening to it, and man, this is just a freaky ass song. I mean, this you look at the lyrics, and the lyrics don't make a hell of a lot of sense. To me, this song is like a crazy acid trip. And from, what year was this? 1960, whatever this was, 1968, right thereabouts. This just exemplifies the whole kind of hippie drug acid culture, from that time period. It's like a total psychedelic head trip. I mean, again, you have to wonder if Jim was like kind of like trying to explain in the form of poetry one of his crazy acid trips that he had. That's the vibe you get, and I think the music constantly shifts gears all over the place in this song. It's like every couple of minutes they're totally doing something else, right? It's psychedelic, then it's bluesy, then it's kind of rock, then it's kind of like this majestic, kind of like almost like medieval sounding thing. Ray's harpsichord at the beginning, so gorgeous. He's got really good organ work throughout. Robbie throwing in these little tasty little bluesy nuggets all over the place, which is always really welcome. It's amazing when you really listen to a lot of these Doors songs from these albums. There's a lot of Robbie Krieger guitar soloing and fills all throughout, which I think is really cool. And right around the 5-minute mark, you got John Densmore doing this really cool percussive work, which I think is really nice. It just adds to the whole enchanting kind of like psychedelic druggy vibe of this whole song. And I think Jim is kind of portraying all these different characters in the song, which I think is really cool. I think this, out of all the songs I'm going to talk about here today, is probably the least approachable. Well, maybe not. There's probably one other, well, maybe two others. The three longest ones, I think, are not for your casual fan. But I still think this is a really, really cool song. It's just, I think the others are just a little bit more successful. But when you want something really out there from the Doors, I think this is a really, really good pick. So yeah, so coming in at number 6 is going to be The Soft Parade for me. Coming in at number 5, and I love all these songs. I didn't stress that enough. I love all these songs. This was really hard to kind of rank them in order of preference. None of these are bad, so the ones that are down towards the bottom doesn't mean they suck. They're really good, actually, if not great and legendary. Number 5, I'm going to go with L.A. Woman, from L.A. Woman. This one is just under 8 minutes long. Okay, so again, by radio standards, still really, really long for the time. But again, most of these songs, not all of them, still played on classic radio to this day. Last album with Jim before his death. Here you have Jerry Sheff on bass on this album. I've said it for years. I always thought and never understood why the Doors didn't have a full-time bass player. Because I think, again, they may do without. Like I said, they had some studio bass players from time to time, but mostly and occasionally Robbie played a little bass on the albums. But for the most part, it was basically Ray Manzarek doing the bass lines on the organ or on the pedals, right? So, they made it work. But just imagine if they had a bass player who could do all sorts of cool things there and let Ray do what he did best, right? I just always thought that made so much more sense. So like when you do have a bass player on the albums, it really adds a lot. I think it would have made this great band even greater. Anyway, that's besides the point. So this is an airy, kind of bluesy rock song, like a driving in the car with a top-down type of track. Ray's piano, it's got like this kind of boogie piano thing going on through the whole thing. The organ tones are really nicely done. There's a lot of soaring lead guitars and fills from Robbie. This one is catchy right from the start. You can almost picture like Jim sitting in a car, again, like a convertible with the top down, singing it as he's driving, because it just has that whole like out on the road, on a road trip type of a vibe, which I think is really cool. And Jim sounds so confident on this song. I think his performance on this song is absolutely legendary. And then the whole, the Mr. Mojo rising part of the song, which starts off at about, the 50%, about the halfway point, maybe a little bit more than that. It's chills inducing. It's just so good. I always love the Mr. Mojo rising, and it just kind of picks up the pace from there and builds. This band was great at like building momentum. So good. And at nearly 8 minutes long, this song never feels long at all. And to me, this song is almost like their Freebird, I think. And I think if the Doors would have kind of continued on and Jim hadn't died, and this would be the song that probably would be best finishing off the show. Just L.A. Woman, just taking you out. So good. It's a classic song. It's been a radio staple ever since. I love it, but it's number 5 for me. It just goes to show you how great these songs are. All right, so coming in at number 4, I'm going to go with When the Music's Over from Strange Days. It's funny. This particular, and this song is like 11 minutes long. The vibe of this second album is really different than the first album. I think there's definitely lots more psychedelia happening on this album. As such, it's probably not as instantly approachable as the debut, but I think it's pretty damn good. I think on this song, Jim, and again, it's the last song on the album, 11 minutes and change. Jim is just absolutely enchanting on this song. It's just so good. I think at the height of his powers, he's that guy, even though he doesn't have like a classic singing voice. What he does with his voice is the main draw of this band, and just what makes them so magical. I mean, all these guys together, you have to have the four of them together to make this magic. But Morrison is really the key. He's the secret weapon. And Ray's intoxicating organ on this track is so good. Robbie's spiraling guitar weaving around the organ and drums and the vocals, so good. Robbie was so great at that. At doing just doing all these kind of cool little things, so good. And I want to read some of the lyrics here because I think they're fascinating. For the music is your special friend, dance on fire as it intends. Music is your only friend until the end. Until the end. Over and over and over again. Right? Is he talking about the listener's connection to the song? Is this a continuation of what we heard on the song, The End, which we'll talk about in a few minutes? I don't know. Let's go on. Cancel my subscription to the resurrection. Send my credentials to the house of detention. I got some friends inside. The face in the mirror won't stop. The girl in the window won't drop. A feast of friends alive, she cried, waiting for me outside. It's like, what? What does it mean? I don't know. I really don't know. Some of these lyrics are just so indecipherable, but only Jim knows, right? But just still fascinating, right? Like trying to figure out what the fuck is he talking about. And as with The End, it's throughout much of the song, it's very minimalistic stuff, but it's so dramatic. And then right around the 8-minute mark, the fury gets unleashed with Morrison screams and angry guitar and organ, Densmore just bashing away underneath. And then the big flourish at the end just absolutely seals the deal. It's a great song, and I think one of their most underrated songs in their catalog. It's really, really great. So yeah, that comes in at number 4. When the Music's Over, a wonderful, wonderful epic. Number 3, I gotta go with Light My Fire. Probably their most well-known song. It's amazing. It's an absolute gem. Classic track. 7 minutes and 10 seconds long. And again, 1967. This was a major hit. The Break On Through was the first single released. That didn't really do much of anything. And then all of a sudden this came out. Boom. Big hit. What's crazy about it, though, you got the opening, one of the most recognizable opening keyboard melodies ever, right? Then, Jim comes in. Time is true. It's kind of like this circus music, psychedelic circus music, right? Jim sings for like a minute or so, and then what happens? Ray's organ solo starts. And it's an absolute thing of beauty. But it starts at 1 minute into the song. Who does that? Who does that? Starts off the song with, you got a little bit of you got a keyboard intro, a little bit of vocals, a verse, a chorus, and then boom, let's go into the keyboard solo. And the keyboard solo goes all the way to 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And it's brilliant. Who does that? Not only that, but as soon as his keyboard solo ends, his organ solo ends, Robbie comes in for the guitar solo. And he takes that all the way to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Who in 1967 is doing 2 solos, 1 keyboard solo, 1 guitar solo, taking up 4 of the song's first 5 minutes? 1 minute of intro and a little bit of vocals, and then the next 4 minutes of solos. Who does that? Crazy. And I hate when radio stations play Light My Fire and they edit out about half of Robbie's solo. Just can't do it. It's like it starts going, and all of a sudden, no. Where's the rest, people? You can't cut that out. You can't edit out any of this song because it's all mandatory and it has to be there. Has to be there. And it's crazy when you think about how much controversy this song started up back in the day with the "Girl, We Couldn't Get Much Higher" lyric. It's just crazy, right? Oh, it's reference to drugs. We can't play that on the radio. We can't. The band's gonna play on Ed Sullivan, right? Guys, you can't say that line. You can't say it. Got to change it, right? It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And I think Jim is just absolutely snarling on the finale of it, which is really cool because he's kind of like light and cheery in the beginning, and then he just shows all his power. John's just flailing away underneath. I mean, Light My Fire is just absolutely classic, legendary. But it's my number 3 here. Number 2. Let's go back to L.A. Woman, shall we? Riders on the Storm. I've long had a love affair with Riders on the Storm. I think it's an absolute gem of an atmospheric rock track. And, it's just over 7 minutes long. Another one of their radio staples. And again, one of those songs you just can't edit down. You just can't do it. The opening thunderstorm sounds with the, the light rain, the thunder. Ray's haunting electric piano comes in. It's a total mood setter. It's moody, atmospheric rock brilliance. And what I love, and I wish he would have played more Fender Rhodes electric piano throughout the career of this band, because I think he just sounds so good in this kind of just moody, kind of spooking, haunting music. So good. You got Jim doing like this kind of spoken word vocal thing. It's awesome. John's gentle drumming in the background. A little bit of bluesy fills from Robbie, which is really cool. And then when Robbie's that little solo comes in, right, it's drenched in like reverb and tremolo, and it's kind of minimalistic. He doesn't do too much, but it just fits perfectly. So good. And then you get Ray's Fender Rhodes electric piano solo, which is so tasty. So good. And then the last minute and a half of the song is just hauntingly beautiful. Pretty much taking the song out kind of the way it began. And I think like the opening and the ending is so very, very similar. And then you have all this gorgeous stuff in the middle, but just so hauntingly like stark and desolate. And again, kind of like L.A. Woman, the song, where it's just like, all right, the sun's out, put the top down, right, in the car and driving around. This is the opposite end. This is maybe that guy on the same road trip, but he's driving through a state where, it's rainy, it's thunderstorm, it's maybe a little chilly. He's got the top down the way it's supposed to be, and he's got maybe the heat on, and he's just driving late at night trying to stay awake. That's Riders on the Storm, right? It's totally different. It's like you got L.A. Woman, and then you get Riders on the Storm. That same guy on that same road trip, but two totally different scenarios, right? Awesome stuff. And how poetic is it that Riders on the Storm is the last song on the last album with Jim Morrison before his death? Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. All right, so my number 1, obviously, by process of elimination, it is The End. Last song on the first album, track number 11. Closes out the album in absolutely dramatic fashion, 12 minutes long. Robbie's haunting guitar. You get that light tambourine at the beginning, allowing Jim to kind of come in and weave these little poetic ramblings that, again, maybe don't make a hell of a lot of sense. And then, John's drums start coming in. You hear Ray in the background, that organ. It's kind of like far away. It starts to creep into the mix. And you got Robbie's little brief solo comes in, right? It's got using blues and little classical things going on. But then it's, Jim starts to make more of his appearance. And all the children are insane. It's haunting as all hell. Waiting for the summer rain. Yeah. It just starts to build. So good. John's drumming. So understated, but so powerful. Right? And it keeps this kind of slow, kind of meandering pace till right around the 7-minute mark. And then all of a sudden, Jim turns it up a notch, right? He walked on down the hall. And here it comes. Father, yes, son, I want to kill you, right? Mother, I want to, and boom, all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose. And then it's like from that moment on, all bets are off. Chaos begins. The whole end of the song it's almost like crazy free jazz, but done by a bunch of guys into psychedelia, right? if you're a fan of the Great War film from the late 70s, Apocalypse Now, Francis Ford Coppola, I mean, there's the most legendary scene in the film, or one of them, because there's so many of them. This is the soundtrack to it. And it's just like, you can't, for me, because I've seen the film so many times and I've listened to this album so many times, I can't unsee one without the other. So when I listen to this, I think that. When I watch it, you hear the music obviously in the film, but you're thinking the Doors. You're thinking, up on the hill somewhere is the band playing while all this craziness is going on down below with Martin Sheen and company. Right? It's crazy. Yeah, it's one of the spookiest, most haunting rock songs of the era, I think, and I just absolutely love it. I think it's a gem. I mean, you look at it though. We try to break it down. Like for most of the song, there's not much going on, but it's the atmosphere and the sense of dread that they've created, which it just works so amazingly, so amazingly. So yeah, that's my pick for number 1. It's The End from the debut album. Number 2 is Riders on the Storm from L.A. Woman. Number 3, Light My Fire from the debut. Number 4, When the Music's Over from Strange Days. Number 5, L.A. Woman, the title track from L.A. Woman. And number 6, The Soft Parade from The Soft Parade. So there you have it. That's me ranking the epics from the Doors. Let me know if you like this theme, because I could probably do more of this ranking epic songs from bands that have lots of epic songs. So we could totally do that. If you guys like this sort of thing, I figured I'd give it a whirl and see how it works. But you let me know. Thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, our Cameo page, and the Sea of Tranquility Join Now membership options. That's all available down below. Thank you in advance for all your support there. It helps keep things going here on SOT. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I'm Pete Pardo. Take care. Bye-bye.